just getting started. And Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk is going to join us in a second.
You know, one of the highlights, and I'm dead serious on this, the highlights of the entire trip, no, it was not me and Loveman eating at La La Noodle or whatever that place was called. When we were walking down the hallway in the concessions, and I go, "Oh, it's Mike Florio, Mike!" And I stuck my hand out, and he came right up, and we dapped it up and shook hands. And then he immediately turns to Bonte, and it's like, "Oh, you guys!" And Bonte points to me, he's like, "He's the one, and just ran me over with the bus.
Florio goes, "I know your voice. We got into it before." I say, "Yeah, we got into it, but you also got into it with the other guy too." I'm respectful of Mike, and I love his book.
Best.
He's on the line right now. Again, check out his book, Father of Mine, now available on Amazon, inspired by true events. Father of Mine crafts a compelling and suspenseful tale by using actual activities of the organized crime ring and willing and by exploring the tensions that arise when a father who didn't think he cared about his son's chosen path realizes that he does. Mike, good morning. Welcome back to the Morning Roast. It was good to run into you at Super Bowl 58. Thankfully, we didn't run into you after Super Bowl 58 because we're all down.
And,
sad. You know, we're kind of sad here. But before we get into that, this book, man, because I do want to promote this. This is very compelling stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about this book that you're helping Arthur here?
And, you know, I grew up in Wheeling, West Virginia, 60 miles from Pittsburgh back in the 70s. And my dad was a bookie connected to the local mob there. And to me, it was just normal. Now, I didn't really know all that much, learn all that much, see all that much. My mom did a great job of keeping me kind of sheltered from it and having a completely normal life. But I picked up a few things by osmosis, and I was at my dad's bar a few times, and I just had an idea one night with that as the basic background, and none of it's autobiographical. It's all completely fictionalized based on that general atmosphere. And, you know, it's a story about a father and a son and the things that a father will do, won't do, shouldn't do to help out his son in a time of need. And it's a son who's very interested in what his dad does and decides to get maybe a little bit too close to the flame. And it just kind of goes from there. So It's been well received, and I appreciate the chance to talk about it a little bit. And again, $3.99. It's over 400 pages, so my math tells me that that's less than a penny a page.
Yeah.
What the hell else can you buy for $3.99?
I'm actually buying the book right now.
Yeah, I'm going to do it
I'm buying it right now during this interview.
Well, I have to ask you a question, Mike.
Because I love mob stuff.
I didn't know this. I mean, thank you for opening up and letting us know. So are you a Sopranos fan? Because Bonte's rewatching Sopranos again right now.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I'm very sensitive about the whole stereotyping that gets done with Italian Americans because I'm like 98% Italian. But at the same time, that stuff's pretty good. The Godfather's good. You know, it's compelling drama with high stakes and life and death and jail or not jail and who's going to be the rat and who's going to honor the omerta and everything that goes along with it. And, you know, that doesn't mean you endorse it in real life. You know, we got to watch something on TV.
Exactly.
Why not watch something that's naturally dramatic and compelling?
Yeah, no doubt. Like the Super Bowl, right? Super Bowl 58. Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. All right, let's I guess we start here. Everybody's talking about the overtime. What do you think of the way the Niners handled the situation in overtime while Kansas City boasted saying, we're going to kick the ball off anyway?
Well, I don't like the fact that both teams had a pre-baked approach that didn't seem to take into account the circumstances that unfolded in that game. The way Kyle Shanahan explained it, the analytics people recommended before the playoffs even started that if we win the toss, we're going to take the ball. And, okay, fine. And the defense was tired, right? That came out later. Didn't come out right after the game. The only explanation right after the game was we wanted the third possession, i.e. the first possession of sudden death. Okay, fine. Then 2 days later it was, well, our defense was really tired, and it was a field goal game. And that kind of makes sense because you go field goal, and then sudden death field goal, you win a championship. But if you're going to do analytics, and this is where I think analytics meets the water's edge of reality, you got to take into account the fact that you're dealing with a guy in Patrick Mahomes that is going to relish the opportunity to go down the field, score a touchdown, and make the 2-point conversion and walk off with a Super Bowl championship. And I'd much rather make him go first. I don't want to let him go last. I don't want him playing 4-down football. I want him playing 3-down football. You know, if they had ended up 4th and 1 from their own 34 on the opening drive of overtime, are they going to go for it there? Are they going to punt it there? I don't know. But you definitely know they're going to go for it when they're down 3 4th and 1 from their own 34. So I just think that whatever you choose to do, you better be willing to deviate from it, and you need to take into account who the quarterback of the other team is. Because what an opportunity it would have been if Mahomes goes first. What a chance for Brock Purdy to enter the pantheon of all-time great Super Bowl performances if he had taken the 49ers down the field and won the game. Let's say the Chiefs had settled for a field goal, and the 49ers are in position to win it with a touchdown, and if Brock Purdy had pulled that off, not only do you win the championship, you have poured jet fuel on the fire of this guy's early career existence in the NFL. So I think there's a lot of different factors that should have gone into it. And at the end of the day, and I apologize for the long answer, please don't call me out on the back end. But at the end of the day, I really do believe that Kyle didn't want to go against the recommendation of his analytics people, because if you go against them and it doesn't work, you got to worry about everything they're going to say about you to Jed York and Parag Marathe and Dr. York and everybody else above you in the organization.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. That's very interesting. Obviously, the legacies of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, they feel cemented. Now they're just adding to it. Spagnuolo now becomes a legend, and his legacy is just incredible. What is Kyle Shanahan's current legacy?
Well, he's in danger of becoming his generation's Bud Grant. And, you know, we had Kevin Clark from ESPN on our show last week, and he made a great point about how basically, you know, Michael Jordan, what he did in the 80s created Karl Malones and Charles Barkleys and guys who were great but never had a chance to touch a championship trophy. And you're going to have that with Mahomes. And Shanahan may keep getting back to the Super Bowl or close to it, but as long as he keeps bumping up against Mahomes, he's going to have to deal with this very real possibility that they're going to keep losing. And the problem is, now you've got 2 Super Bowl losses and 2 losses in the NFC Championship, especially when you get to the Super Bowl. The next time, and I remember this happening with the Bengals when Marvin Lewis was taking the team to the playoffs every year, and they lost in the first round every year. And at some point, the narrative overwhelms every other storyline. I mean, if they get back to the Super Bowl in the next couple of years, and especially if they're against the Chiefs again, that's all we're going to talk about. Will they? You know, it just adds more pressure. It adds more stress. It adds more focus.
Yep.
And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy at some level. So that's what makes it so important for Kyle to get back there and win it. And it makes it harder when you have this list of losses that just keeps adding to the pressure.
No, Mike, you're so spot on, because I was bringing this up during the Super Bowl week. You know, you bring up Bud Grant for the great Minnesota Vikings teams. I was bringing up Jim Kelly and Mara Levy at Buffalo in the early 90s when I was a kid. In every Super Bowl, you could feel the pressure mounting after Scott Norwood misses. Then they get blown out by the Washington football team the next year, the Cowboys back-to-back. And I always thought, boy, what if the Niners beat Mahomes in Super Bowl 54? Next year they get blown out in Tampa Bay, right? Patrick Mahomes' company, the pressure mounts on that side. And so you felt the tension in that room. You felt the tension at Allegiant Stadium in that third quarter where he comes out and throws 8 passes or calls 8 passes and only 1 run. But I got to ask you, what about the Steve Wilks firing? We kind of knew it out here in the Bay Area that there was a disconnect. What did you make of that situation where Steve Wilks got relieved of his duties early Wednesday morning?
Well, you know, on the surface, it looks like he was made to be the scapegoat. And I'm sure Kyle understands that's going to be the perception. In the first half, the defense did a great job of giving the offense opportunities, and it could have been 21-6 at the half like it was when Tampa Bay beat Kansas City in Super Bowl 55. It was 10-3, and the offense didn't take advantage of its chances to score as many points as possible before the Chiefs go on that inevitable Golden State Warriors 18-2 run. We know it's going to happen at some point, and what's amazing about Super Bowl 58 is it never really happened. There never was that point where they just blew the doors off. It was they finally got the lead, and then the 49ers took the lead back, and it was field goal until we got to overtime. But I thought the defense in that game was good. 19 points. Hold the Chiefs 19 points in 60 minutes of football. That's pretty good. But I think what it came down to is this. You hired a defensive coordinator who doesn't specialize in the system that you run, and you knew that going in. You knew it going in. You did it anyway. I think what happened, I don't know this, but I think common sense would suggest that through the course of the 2023 season, Kyle had to worry about the defense more than ever before, had to spend time on the defense more than ever before, was just spending time and effort and stress focused on issues with the defense at a time when he would have rather been focused on the offense. When you're an offensive coordinator becomes a head coach, you basically throw the keys to the car defensively to your coordinator. And I just think that Kyle, by the end of the year, was exasperated by how much time he had to spend worrying about the defense. And I think he just wants someone there where he doesn't have to worry about the defense and he can focus even more on the offense. And that's why he did what he did. And I feel bad for Steve Wilkes. I feel like the guy can't catch a break, but he is under contract for another couple of years. He's going to get paid if nothing else materializes. It's just a shame that it happened at a time when most of the other seats, all of the other seats out there for defensive coordinator were full.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good breakdown. And I'm still reeling over the Bud Grant comp. I hadn't even thought of that one. That's
Minnesota.
I mean, that's an incredible pull, Mike. Mike, so I saw an article from you guys, Pro Football Talk, talking Mike Florio, linking the Niners to Brandon Staley. Expand on that. Now, are there any other candidates' names that you're hearing?
Yeah, and look, I always try to be careful in situations like this because it can easily get twisted into me saying that Brandon Staley will be the next defensive coordinator. And I have to ask myself, when I hear something that I think is interesting to me, do I want to put it out there or do I not want to put it out there? And it's I made the judgment that, okay, if I'm hearing from people I trust in league circles that Brandon Staley could be the next defensive coordinator, it's worth putting it out there because it's interesting, because there's going to be a lot of 49ers fans who are like, no. Not after what he did as head coach of the Chargers. But then you got to say, well, he was okay as defensive coordinator of the Rams, even though the 49ers beat them both times they played in 2020. He did well enough that he became a head coach the next year. So that's the name that I think has to be considered at or near the top of the list for now, given who's available. It hurts Steve Wilkes to be put out there at this stage of the offseason, and it hurts the 49ers to start their search at this stage of the offseason. So Staley's available, and unless they're going to get, and wouldn't it be wild if they get Pete Carroll to come be the defensive coordinator? Hey, you want to run the Seattle cover 3 defense? Get the godfather of that attack. Wouldn't that be something? And I don't know whether or not he or Mike Vrabel or Bill Belichick would want to go back and coordinate a defense instead of just waiting for next year. But we'll feel much differently about moving on from Steve Wilkes if the next defensive coordinator is one of those 3 guys. That would be something. I haven't heard anything to attach any of those guys to it, but that would be something if they emerge. But there just aren't a lot of guys out there unless they're going to stay with someone on the staff. And Kyle has said he's going to look inside and outside the building. Unless they stay with someone on the staff, there aren't a lot of names out there of guys they could bring in.
Mike, I've got to ask you about Brock Purdy. I thought he was okay Sunday. I thought he was good. Not great. You saw greatness from Patrick Mahomes. Purdy was okay, but Kansas City had 9 blitzes where they just were scot-free. The most they've had all season long. The Spags had to help the zone defense. We're going to play sticky man coverage. We're going to blitz Brock Purdy 51% of the time. After next season, Brock Purdy will be due for some new money. I do wonder, Mike, from your vantage point, did he look like a $40 to $50 million 8-year quarterback on Sunday against Kansas City? And do you believe the Niners have their long-term guy at the quarterback spot?
Well, how long-term is long-term? I think everything in this league is subject to change. You can have one bad year, and what they think about you will alter dramatically. I thought he was good, not great, and I'll boil it down to the most important play of the game. 3rd and 4. With 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And if you go back and look at that play pre-snap, Brandon Ayuk is not covered. Brandon Ayuk is in the slot, and Trent McDuffie has cheated over toward the gap that he ultimately kicks through. Now, at one point, he tries to step back over like he's man on Brandon Ayuk, but he's not covered. And I know Brock Purdy explained how he went about processing in that moment when McDuffie split the gap, but Ayuk was open. And pre-snap, a more experienced quarterback, and maybe Purdy gets there sooner than later, a more experienced quarterback sees that Ayuk is the guy who's going to be open, and he's the guy who should be your hot read if you do find yourself in trouble. Or at least he's the guy you should be looking at. Now, I think the play itself should have been designed to go to Christian McCaffrey. That's not on Purdy. That's on Kyle. Somebody texted me, somebody who's been involved in the league for years texted me right before that play. In moments like this, think about players, not plays. In other words, get it in McCaffrey's hands and let him gain the 4 yards. But be that as it may, when McDuffie broke through and Purdy really couldn't do anything, okay, compare that to what Mahomes would have done in that situation. First of all, I don't think you're going to blitz a single guy like that against Mahomes, because he's either going to sidearm the throw around you to an open guy, or he's going to fake it while you're in the air and take off running and get the first down, or he's going to do something else to convert it. That's the difference right now between Purdy and Mahomes. And I'd say pretty much every quarterback in the league and Mahomes. Mahomes is always going to find a way to get it done when he needs to get it done. Purdy had a chance to get it done in that spot, and he didn't. And if you convert that play, if you cash in that moment, damn good chance you're winning the Super Bowl.
No doubt. No doubt. You make a burn of timeout. We even talk about running a run play there and having a 2-down sequence there where you say, okay, we're going to run 4 plays and ice the game right here. You bring up Ayuk and you bring up that text that you received about it's not about the play, it's about the player. That leads me to George Kittle. 3 targets, 2 catches, 4 yards. We were talking to Brian Baldinger earlier this week, and I for the life of me, these top teams, they get their money guys the ball. Travis Kelce, last 2 games, what he had? 20 catches, 21 targets. Well, Kansas City said, we're going to figure out a way to get the ball to 87. The good teams always do. Why is it that in all these big games, we feel like George Kittle doesn't have a lot of targets? Brandon Ayuk only has 6 targets. Debo has 11 targets. It's not about the player. It feels like it's about Shanahan's scheme and where they need to throw the ball to a spot. That text message is alarming to me, Mike, because I'm with you. And I'm with that guy who texts you. It should be about the players, and you got to force feed your playmakers.
Well, that's right. And you got to ask yourself, if we're not going to take advantage of the playmakers in moments like that, can we justify a $24 million cap charge for George Kittle next year? At some point, and I think this is why they're trying to slow play the Brandon Ayuk situation, because they have him under contract for $14 million for 2024. They got big cap numbers for Debo and for Kittle, and this is the last year before they're going to have to deal with Brock Purdy unless they can get him to wait 4 years for his long-term contract. At some point, you just can't pay everybody, and at some point, you got to pay the guys you're using. Or if it is all system-driven, you find younger, cheaper guys who can come in and be taught the system and just pick up for where, the other guys left off. And remember, before the season, George Kittle made the comment about the window closing, and most people were like, well, how the window's not closing on the 49ers? No, it's not closing on the 49ers, but it's closing on a lot of those guys who are on the 49ers because sooner than later, they're not going to be part of the team anymore. And, even though Kittle had over 1,000 yards during the regular season, if they're not scheming to get him the ball in big moments, or he's not getting open in big games, you got to ask yourself, is it time to reallocate the resources and move on? And I'm sure they'll give him a chance to restructure and maybe even take less money before it's all said and done. But he's getting closer to the end, and not far behind him is going to be Debo Samuel, and that's why they have to make some tough decisions this offseason, especially if Ayuk's position is, I want my contract now.
Yeah. Mike, there's such a wildly successful NFL season. Like, you just zoom out, and it's like, dude, the viewership is through the roof. The league feels as healthy as ever. They've got a dynasty going. I don't know. I know Brady's got the most wins when it comes to Super Bowl wins, and his accomplishments and his resume are so thorough. But in terms of playing the position, I thought it was Brady. Now I'm thinking it's Mahomes in terms of the highest level I've ever seen. And the arm talent is just, it's incredible, right? But to me, it's the pre-snap stuff, the post-snap understanding of movement and spatial awareness, the situational, who to get the ball to, how many yards he needs. I mean, I feel like I'm watching Michael Jordan at his height, Tiger Woods at his height, pick the athlete. Is he the best you've ever seen?
Yeah. And he's only going to get better.
Yep.
Unless something happens, like all of a sudden he can't throw the ball anymore, he's only going to get better. And that's something he talked about before the season started. He craves getting to the point where he will be like Brady was mid-30s into early 40s. You get to a point, and it's a sweet spot where your body can still do everything it needs to do, but your brain has processed so many scenarios that before the snap exactly what's going to happen. There'll be a point where Patrick Mahomes won't be running around behind the line of scrimmage with his hair on fire, throwing the ball off of every arm angle and every body platform. He'll be able to just get the ball and get rid of it like Brady was late in his career. Brady can still be playing because he could get the ball and get rid of it. That arm that he has will still serve him well into his 50s. It's just a matter of once your legs go, you got to be able to get rid of the ball. And Patrick Mahomes is going to be a different quarterback in 10 years. He's going to be smarter. He's going to be better from the standpoint of knowing before the play where that weakness is going to be in the defense. And that's, I said after they beat the Ravens in the AFC Championship, I said, folks, if you don't like this, you better find something else to do on Sundays during football season for the next 10 years, because this guy isn't going anywhere.
No doubt. Real quick, I got to ask you about Nick Bosa. What's your impressions on Nick Bosa? Because I'm a little, after he held out, and he got $120 million, and I know the Niners didn't want to pay him that much in guaranteed money. In a bye week, he complained about conditioning and how camp hurt him when that wasn't the issue at all. Once he came back, his mom was on the airwaves saying, oh, he's ready to go. Then after the Super Bowl, he's talking about conditioning and defense, and we weren't ready for the zone read. And quite honestly, I'm a little irritated with Nick Bosa. I saw him taking plays off on the final drive of regulation. Seriously. Game changers at the edge rusher, like T.J. Watt changes games. Myles Garrett changes games. Chris Jones on the other side changed the game when he needed to change the game in Super Bowl 54 and 58. Where are you at on Nick Bosa, Mike?
Well, it's a great point, because it's one thing to be a great regular season player. What's going to happen when you get to the last couple miles of the marathon? Are you going to step up in those big moments? Are you just going to have a knack for making a superhuman play at a time when a superhuman play is needed? And, look, for what they paid him, are the 49ers getting the production? And it's a tough spot. What do you do? How do you anticipate, hey, we got 3-4 great years out of a guy, and now he deserves a ton of money, and we're going to pay it to him, and we're going to hope like hell he continues to earn it. It's a tough spot for a team to be in, and it's one of the it's a blessing to find great players in the draft, but it's also a curse, because at some point you have to pay them, and you have to hope that it's money well invested at a time when every year you could go back and you can scout and you can get much cheaper guys in the draft or in undrafted free agency and just see who develops out of there. But the problem is whoever turns into a great player is going to have to get paid. And you're only going to find out 1 year at a time. You get to the postseason, who's going to step up and perform and who's not.
Wow. A lot there, Mike. We appreciate the 30 minutes that you gave us today, man. The
Thank
new
you,
book.
Mike.
I just ordered it right now on Amazon right now. I can't wait to dive into this. Father of Mine.
I'll know if you guys didn't, because I can track all the sales in real time, so I'll find out.
Yeah, I did Amazon. I got a paperback book on Amazon.
$14.99.
Yep. It's black with red.
The paperback's $14.99, but the ebook's $3.99. That's the paper book is as cheap as it can be, and the ebook's almost as cheap as it can be. I just want people to read it and enjoy it. Knock on wood, I don't need the money. I just like creating the content, and I love hearing that people have read it and enjoyed it. It's just nice to know that, because everything I write on the website, by tomorrow it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean much the time I write it, but by tomorrow it definitely doesn't mean anything. It's nice to write something that lasts a little longer.
And I love smelling the paperback pages. Yeah. I'm a paperback guy. I'm old school like that, Mike.
You're good. You're a good guy, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on again.
Yeah, no, it was good to meet you, Mike.
Right,
seriously.
All right, Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. A lot there.